Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching NDTV. Barely 3 days to go for the 2024 Lok Sabha polls. Election Commission of India has said that a record number of inducements have been seized, with a staggering 4,650 crore recovered in cash, drugs, liquor and freebies between the 1st of March and the 13th of April. Now, this is 34% higher than the value of materials seized during the entire 2019 election campaign. Let me give you some more data. According to ADR, a think tank that works on electoral reforms, in 2019, the chances of winning for a crorepati candidate was 21%, whereas the chances of winning for a candidate with assets less than rupees 1 crore was just 1%. So has money muscled its way into playing a more dominant role in Indian elections? Does Indian politics have any room left for good people who have neither muscle nor money? That is what we ask tonight. To help us understand the latest developments on this, I have my colleague Mayank Mishra, who has tracked this issue very closely. Mayank, on an average, ECI says rupees 100 crore are being seized every day. What does this large-scale seizure of cash indicate?
The seizure is indicative of a much bigger problem, and that is rise of money power in elections. And I will give you few data points to support this. Exactly 20 years ago, in 2004, total expenditure on election was something like 14,000 crore. Now this year's estimates are, and all these are estimates, this year's estimates are something like 1.2 lakh crore. So 10-fold rise in just 20 years, which is huge, massive. And there is a reason for that. All recent elections have shown that those who have higher assets, candidates with rich candidates, probability of him or her winning election is many times more than those who don't have assets. Take the example of 2019, for instance. There were some 900 candidates that year who declare assets in excess of 5 crore. And a third of them won elections, which is huge. This is in contrast to there were some 7,000 candidates who declare assets less than 5 crore. Just 3% of them won election. So chances are 10 times higher if you have higher assets.
Okay.
This is huge, and since politics is very high stakes game, all data points are analyzed carefully. Since money power is winning you elections, all parties put their bets on money power, right, and candidates with higher assets.
And Mike, what do you think are the reasons for this rise of the influence of money power in Indian elections?
So I will give you some data here. Each Lok Sabha constituency has on an average 1,900 to 2,000 polling booths. Now you have to, on election day, you have to appoint at least 1 or 2 polling agents, and that costs a lot of money. Then there are some 15 to 20 lakh voters. This is once again an average, 15 to 20 lakh voters in each parliamentary constituency. For every candidate, every single voter has to be reached out, either in person or through messages or through your representatives. That is also a costly affair. Then you have to host mega rallies of big leaders. That also has huge cost. Put together everything, you put everything together, and you have to spend a lot of money just to fight an election. Now, there was a study done by some professor in US university, and her conclusion was return on investment even at the entry level in politics is much higher than any comparison, much higher than any profession that exists today.
Right.
So, and that is the reason we have seen growing rise of parivarvad because only political families, big political families have the resource to fight election.
Right.
So this has become a vicious cycle. You need lots of money to win election, and then you you try to have a bigger return on investment.
So multiple factors here at play for this rising, increase of dominance of money power in Indian politics. Also joined, thank you Mayank for joining us with those details. Also joining me now is a panel of esteemed guests, O.P. Rawat, former Chief Election Commissioner, Major General Anil Verma, who is the head at the Association of Democratic Reforms, and Aditi Fadnis, who is a senior journalist and also author. Thank you all of you for being here. First to you, Mr. Rawat. EC has unlimited power to regulate aspects of elections. How come the ECI has not been able to curb the menacing rise of money power? Because, the kind of cash that has been seized and that we're talking about, though quite large, seems to be just a fraction of the actual amount that gets spent.
Very true. This may be just fraction, but this has other elements as well. Our economy is growing. Grey and black economy, the underbelly is also growing. And because elections are spread over 2 to 3 months, these operations in grey and black economy cannot be halted or cannot be stopped. They go on. And election commission's efforts at surveillance, flying squad, everything for catching any cash or any material like drugs, liquor, anything, these efforts yield results, and they catch huge amount of freebies, then other cash and other things. So we have to analyze that what exactly is going into the polls, what other things are happening. In fact, regular business also goes in this. Some Surat diamond jewelry workers, they carry cash to different places and they get caught. So those are the things which we have to see. But it is true that money power is rising. Influence of money on elections is also increasing. And Election Commission must go ahead and take more innovative, creative steps to curb it.
Major General Verma, Chief Election Commissioner Rajiv Kumar, while announcing the polls last month, I remember, had talked about this 4M challenges, the 4Ms being muscle, money, misinformation and MCC violations. Where do you place money in this hierarchy of challenges? Your organization has done some really great work on this. And what does data actually say about growing power of money in politics?
See, money power, I would say, is at the top. Because the whole problem is, I would say, corruption and money power is the fountainhead of, the difficulties that we face in our electoral system. Now, to put, coming to the seizures part of it, putting the entire onus on the Election Commission of India, I think is not correct. They are doing a splendid job. And it is evident from the fact that the seizures are increasing over the years because they have evolved better methods. They have made it, they have developed a new electoral election expenditure monitoring system where on real time they get information. There is coordination between the enforcement agencies and the CEOs, DEOs and other officers on the ground. But what about the responsibility of the political parties? As per the Section 123 of the Representation of Peoples Act and Section 171B and C of the IPC, it is illegal. This whole business of giving money to the voters is illegal. So don't the political parties have to show some responsibility?
Yeah.
I mean, it is like a cat and mouse game between the Election Commission and the political parties.
Yes.
And the other thing is that what happens to all these seizures? I mean, we filed so many RTIs 2-3 years back, but nothing much came of it. Because, like Mr. Rawat just pointed out, some of the cash which is seized is genuine. It may be for somebody going for a marriage or somebody's business dealings are such that they deal in cash and all that. But then how many FIRs are lodged? How many people are punished? I mean, if these prohibited items of a certain amount of cash, if you are carrying over that, you are not supposed to, liquor or drugs or precious metals, etc. If they are found to be carried by the candidates themselves or their agents or some other people connected to the candidate who's contesting elections, then what happens to that after that?
Right.
That data is not available, I'm sorry to say.
That's a very important
This
point.
should be available.
Yes,
It
that's a
should
very
be
important point.
available
And
on
just
the
taking off
Election
from what you
Commission
said,
website.
Aditi ma'am, we keep talking about a cleanup, but clearly this can't be the ECI's job alone, like Major General Verma also pointed out. What should political parties do to stop this? Because, as reporters, we cover people who shift loyalties or get nominated again and again because they are resourceful in many ways. What kind of political stand should leaders be taking in this?
Well, I mean, the most candid and the most telling observation came from India's finance minister, who said she was offered a seat in the Lok Sabha, but she felt she could not fight it because she didn't have enough money. Now, if the finance minister is saying that, I think it's a very sorry commentary on the amount of money that, and she belongs to the party which is arguably one of the wealthiest political parties in the world. So, you know, I remember still the experience of the Tirumangalam election, which was possibly the first election that the election commission cancelled because of too much of cash. And I still remember that there in Tirumangalam, people used to leave a tab with the butcher. Uh, Currency notes used to be delivered to the house inside newspapers, and they used to leave a tab, tell the butcher that this is 1,000 rupees, I'll be coming and taking meat from you, through the day. So if this kind of thing is happening, I mean, I don't know who's responsible to stop it. I think that's a discussion that we need to have on the whole issue, which the Prime Minister also flagged, of funding elections. But overall, it's a very sorry state of affairs. And I mean, Mayank ji explained very clearly the size of the pie. This has gone beyond all proportions. I think it's just not sustainable anymore. And it's, in many ways, it is undermining our democracy.
Mr. Rawat, Aditi ma'am just spoke about this Tirumangalam formula, something that we all know, which, in some ways brought out this whole menace of cash for votes. But more money getting spent also means you have to look for ways to have a good return on investment. And that is a source of corruption. Do you think we have a legislative route to fix this problem?
I don't think legislation cannot change these kind of nefarious activities in any sector. Even social reforms cannot be brought about by legal enactments. It is needed, like Mr. General Verma said, that political parties should also introspect and contribute towards this goal, that they have to purify this process of campaigning and elections. Only then things will happen. And then, yes, some certain laws, like there is no ceiling on political parties' expenditure. So that kind of law should also be enacted. General Verma also pointed out that what happens to these seizures, I just have to clarify on that Election Commission monitors all these seizures, and in fact there is a time limit prescribed for all kinds of cases, like those which are genuine, where some regular business or marriage or something, then I think it has to be returned to that person within 3 days. If it is illegal, cases have to be filed in the appropriate court, and it should be monitored so that before next election, all these cases come to a logical end. And it is not being put in public domain. I think Election Commission should heed to General Verma's advice and put all this information before the next election in public domain, so that everyone comes to know what happened to all those seizures.
That's very important. Major General Verma, the EC has also been talking about a level playing field with measures such as tightening, checking, monitoring. But is an inducement-free electoral process even possible in India? Because, there are leaders I know who keep saying that is bar paisa nahi denge. But there are also other people in the party who said that no, this is too much of a gamble to take. In some states, I also feel that voters are also used to demanding and claiming money or other freebies. What do you think is a societal solution to something like this?
See, finally, I don't think there is a solution, but we only can reduce the amount of influence of the cash and these other things in the polling fund. I was about to come to this point which you just raised. The point is also that the voters have to be educated. Because you see, even well-to-do voters, middle-class voters, even they accept freebies. If you are getting a TV or, mixie or something, nobody says no. And as a matter of fact, if you recall, sometime back in I think Karnataka or somewhere, there were protests by the voters. They said we didn't get what they promised. So it has to be an overall thing, The efforts have to be made by the voters being educated, the political parties taking a stance, and of course the election commission trying its best to curb this menace which is there.
Right.
But money power has to be reduced.
Aditi ma'am, some
And a
days
level
ago.
playing field-
Yes,
level
sir, please go
playing
on.
field, you see, we have all types of political parties. There are smaller ones, bigger ones, and similarly for the candidates. Now, as you see the graph of crorepati, in all our ADR reports, you will
Yeah.
find the graph of crorepati candidates and the winners is increasing day by day. This phase 2 report of the current
Yes.
election, which we've just released, there are 33% crorepati candidates even in this. So by the time the final this thing is there, it will be about 80-90% of the people will be crorepatis. And the important thing to note is that all these big parties, the national parties, they are the ones who field candidates. 90% to 100% of them are crorepatis.
Right.
So level playing field is called for there also. I mean, if you are just taking money as the winnability factor, and of course criminal cases also, as per the phase 2 report I just mentioned, 22% have criminal cases against themselves.
Right. So the gulf between, the richest and the poorest candidates is also increasing. Aditi ma'am, some days ago, ECI officials in Tamil Nadu conducted checks in a helicopter that was carrying Congress leader Rahul Gandhi. We also saw the helicopter of TMC leader Abhishek Banerjee being inspected. ECI sources have said that surveillance and inspection of non-scheduled aircraft during poll is something that is part of standing instructions. And then, of course, there was a lot of back and forth between political parties. How can the cleanup of the system take place without it being politicized?
Well, this is a complicated question, and I'm not sure I have the answer to this. I'm not sure what a search of Abhishek Banerjee and Rahul Gandhi's aircraft would have revealed. I don't think they carry sackfuls of money with them wherever they go. So this is a subterranean economy. I'm not saying that elections do not yield sort of revenue yielding businesses. There's a whole lot of flags, buntings. There's a whole economy, ecosphere around elections. So that is legitimate business. But political parties are deeply involved in this. And as I said, if the finance minister herself says that she doesn't have the money to fight an election, well, I mean, how will ordinary people fight elections if they are if they are popular and they don't have the money?
Yeah, that is true. Mr. Rawat, not just cash inducements. One of the worrying things about, the announcements that were made by ECI is the seizure of drugs, worth almost 2,069 crore during this period. I want to talk about liquor and drugs because both have been used by political parties. Look at Karnataka, West Bengal and Rajasthan are among top when it comes to distributing liquor to voters during polls. How does one address this particular issue, specifically drugs, because it also has an impact on nation's health? Was this amount of seizure of drugs, more during earlier times? Has it increased, in the recent years?
It has increased, but only thing is that the direct connection that this drug was just meant for inducement to voters. That is not there. In fact, that should be worrying that regular drug trafficking in our country is growing, and that's why when Election Commission clamps in whole country its enforcement system, then this normal drug trafficking gets caught into the fray. Only thing is that if the drug is coming for polls, affecting the polls, then we must see that anti-social elements, the muscle, is being involved somehow through providing them drugs to influence the results of poll. There, the security agencies and election commission should focus and ensure that this is not allowed to happen.
Right. Major General Verma, would you like to respond to that? This whole seizure of drugs, and it seems to be almost more than 65% of the entire, amount that has been seized.
Yeah, it is very unfortunate that this is being used by the political parties and the candidates to influence the voters. It is not only bad from the point of view of the elections, I would say as a social thing also, because you are ruining our young people, who are becoming addicts to this.
Right.
One point which I just want to add before you close is that for the first time we have seen that 106 election officials have been suspended this time by the Election Commission of India for assisting politicians in their campaign. Now, this is another very worrying trend. I mean, this is something which had not come up earlier. And this subjectivity which is there in the states, because after all, the people are picked up by the Election Commission from the respective states only to do all these duties.
Right.
So, though I'm sure they must be doing due diligence and selecting the people carefully, but if this sort of thing is going on before the election, then you can imagine what may happen in the polling booths.
Absolutely. Let me just take Mr. Rawat's response to this before I come to Aditi ma'am for a last word. This whole EC taking strict action against 106 government servants who've been found assisting politicians and violating the MCC. Sir, how do you see this, and what does this say about training of government officials? Because they are also responsible for keeping the system clean. Do you see them also acting in a biased way, and what is the solution to something like this?
Actually, what Election Commission has done should act as an exemplary action, and more such action will definitely improve the situation. But in our national milieu, if you see the deterioration in character of such personnel is increasing day by day because of obvious reasons, that material development is bringing so many avenues for spending money, whereas access to money at that level may not be enough, and therefore they get involved in different kind of wrongdoings, and politicians take advantage of that to arm twist them, and things happen. In fact, in one of the elections I found that without any violent incident, 17 poll personnel died because of cardiac arrest or any such event in the polling station, because the stress was so much and these people could not withstand that stress.
Right. Aditi ma'am, last word from you. Like the 17th Lok Sabha has 475 members who are crorepatis. Money power might be showing its ugly might, but this seems to have dominated our politics for some time now. What does this mean for honest, integrated, meritorious, but financially weak people who want to be part of electoral politics?
Well, it's a pretty depressing outlook, no, Vasudha? And I'm just wondering if drugs during an election, the surveillance has yielded such a big haul, then heaven knows what is happening when elections are not there. And maybe everybody is in league with everybody else in allowing these drugs to go through.
Right.
I can't believe that these drugs are only being used to finance illegally an election. So maybe we should just disband Parliament and have Election Commission rule India, because this is a very, very pernicious kind of a situation.
Right, absolutely.
So, and overall, look, people are becoming wealthier across the nation. The percentage of people who, these days 1 crore really means very little to middle class people. So I don't really think that it is dishonest or immoral to be wealthy. But certainly when wealth is a deciding factor in electability and winnability, then it is a very, very depressing situation.
Right. Thank you all of you for joining me on this show. So it clearly looks like a cat and mouse game, like Major General Verma also pointed out. If parties and candidates are relying on the power of inducements to swing voters, the ECI is also there ready and waiting. But as of now, the ECI is saying that it anticipates the highest ever seizures of inducements recorded in the 75-year history of Lok Sabha elections. That is indeed a cause of concern, and that's the thought we leave you with tonight. Time for a short break. More news and updates on the other side.